Hello friends, welcome to quick revision series of standard books as we are dealing with History of Modern India by Spectrum publication, and today we will discuss on chapter 18, that is Simon Commission and the Nehru Report. Appointment of Simon Commission, that is Indian Statutory Commission. So Indian Statutory Commission is an all-white 7-member commission popularly known as Simon Commission. The chairman of its commission is Sir John Simon, which was set up by the British government under Stanley Baldwin's prime ministership on November 8, 1927. The Simon Commission was appointed to review the workings of Government of India Act 1919 and suggest future measures. The commission was to recommend to the British government whether India was ready to further constitutional reforms and along what lines. So why the commission was appointed? The conservative governments then in power in Britain feared defeat by the Labour Party. The Britain did not want to leave the future's most prized colony in irresponsible hands, and the failure of 1919 Act to create a stable imperial power had led to several parliament reports and inquiries like Lee Commission, which went into Raj's failure to recruit enough British officers, Moodyman Commission, which looked into the deadlock within the diarchy dispensation, and Lilling-Go Commission, which inquired into the crisis of Indian agriculture, had led to the appointment of Indian Statutory Commission, or we can say that is Simon Commission. So basically a Simon Commission was an all-white 7-member Indian Statutory Commission to review the workings of Government of India Act 1919. What was India's response to Simon Commission? The Indian response to Simon Commission was immediate and nearly unanimous. The Congress session in Madras, which was held in December 1927 meeting under the presidency of M.A. Ansari, decided to boycott the Simon Commission at every stage and in every form. Those who decided to support the Congress call of boycott of the Simon Commission included the liberals of Hindu Mahasabha and the majority faction of the Muslim League under Jinnah. The Muslim League had 2 sessions during 1927, one under Jinnah at Calcutta, where it was decided to oppose the Simon Commission, and another at Lahore under Muhammad Safi, who supported the government. The commission landed in Bombay on February 3rd, 1928. Wherever the commission went, there were black flag demonstrations, hartals, and slogans of Simon go back. The police came down heavily on demonstrators. There were lathi charges, not sparing even the senior leaders, where Lala Lajpat Rai received severe blows on his chest in October 1928, and he died on November 17th, 1928. Dr. Ambedkar was appointed by the Bombay Legislative Council to work with the Simon Commission. It is a very, very important fact you have to remember for UPSC prelims. Next is, what is the impact of appointment of Simon Commission on the national movement? It gave a stimulus to radical forces demanding not just complete independence but major socio-economic reforms on socialist lines. When the Simon Commission was announced, the Congress, which did not have any active program in hand, got an issue on which it could once again forge mass action. The challenge of Lord Birkenhead to Indian politicians to produce an agreed constitution was accepted by various political sections, and thus prospects for Indian unity seemed bright at that point of time. What are the recommendations of Simon Commission? The Simon Commission has published a 2-volume report in May 1930. It proposed the abolition of diarchy and the establishment of representative government in the provinces, which should be given autonomy. The report rejected parliamentary responsibility at the center. It suggested that a consultative council of Greater India should be established, which should include representatives of both the British provinces as well as princely states. It suggested that the Northwest Frontier Province and Balochistan should get local legislators, and also recommended that Sindh should be separated from Bombay and Burma should be separated from India. As an answer to Lord Birkenhead's challenge, an all-party conference met in February 1928 and appointed a subcommittee under the chairmanship of Motilal Nehru to draft a constitution. This was the first major attempt by the Indians to draft a constitutional framework for the country. The report, that is the Nehru Report, under the chairmanship of Motilal Nehru, was finalized by August 1928. The recommendations of the Nehru Committee were unanimous except in one respect. While the majority favored the dominion status as the basis of the constitution, a section of it wanted complete independence as the basis. So what are the main recommendations of Nehru Report? The first one is the dominion status on lines of self-governing dominions. Rejection of separate electorates, which had been the basis of constitutional reforms. Instead, a demand for joint electorates with reservation of seats for Muslims at the center and in provinces where they were in minority in proportion to the Muslim population, they were right to contest additional seats. Linguistic provinces, 19 fundamental rights including equal rights for women, right to form unions, and universal adult suffrage. So important things to remember is Nehru Report was finalized by August 1928 under the chairmanship of Motilal Nehru to draft a constitution. It was the first major attempt by the Indians to draft a constitutional framework for the country. Next recommendations include responsible government at the center and in provinces, under which the Indian Parliament at the center to consist of a 500-member House of Representatives elected on the basis of adult suffrage, a 200-member Senate to be elected by provincial councils, House of Representatives to have a tenure of 5 years and the Senate one of 7 years, the central government to be headed by a Governor General appointed by the British government but paid out of Indian revenues, who would act on the advice of the Central Executive Council responsible to the Parliament, provincial councils to have a 5-year tenure headed by a governor acting on the advice of the Provincial Executive Council, full protection to cultural and religious interests of Muslims, and lastly, complete disassociation of state from religion. So what is Delhi proposals of Muslim League? The proposals which were accepted by the Madras session of the Congress, which was held during December 1927, came to be known as the Delhi proposals. The proposals include joint electorates in place of separate electorates with reserved seats for Muslims, 1/3 representation to Muslims in Central Legislative Assembly, representation to Muslims in Punjab and Bengal in proportion to their population, and formation of 3 new Muslim majority provinces includes Sindh, Balochistan, and North West Frontier Province. The Hindu Mahasabha opposed to the proposals, that is Delhi proposals, for creating new Muslim majority provinces and reservation of seats for Muslims majorities in Punjab and Bengal. The concessions made in the Nehru Report to Hindu communalists included the following: joint electorates proposed everywhere but reservation for Muslims only where in minority, Sindh to be detached from Bombay only after dominion status was granted and subject to weightage given to Hindu minority in Sindh, political structure proposed broadly unitary as residual powers rested with the center. There were some amendments proposed by Muhammad Ali Jinnah at the All Parties Conference, which was held at Calcutta in December 1928. to consider the Nehru Report. Jinnah, on behalf of the Muslim League, proposed 3 amendments to the report. The first is the 1/3 representations to Muslims in the central legislature, reservation to Muslims in Bengal and Punjab legislatures, proportionate to their population till adult suffrage was established, and residual powers to provinces. Jinnah's 14 points or demands. The first one include the federal constitution with residual powers to provinces, provincial autonomy, no constitutional amendment by the center without the concurrence of the states constituting the Indian Federation. The fourth point includes all legislators and elected bodies to have adequate representation of Muslims in every province without reducing a majority of Muslims in a province to a minority of equality, adequate representation to Muslims in the services and in self-governing bodies, 1/3 Muslim representation in the central legislature, in any cabinet at the center or in the provinces, 1/3 to be Muslims, separate electorates, no bill or resolution in any legislature to be passed if 3/4 of a minority community consider such a bill or resolution to be against their interests, any territorial redistribution not to affect the Muslim majority in Punjab, Bengal and Northwest Frontier provinces, separation of Sindh from Bombay, constitutional reforms in the Northwest Front province and Balochistan, full religious freedom to all communities, and lastly protection of Muslim rights in religion, culture, education and language. So these are the 14 demands or points of Muhammad Ali Jinnah. The Nehru Report was found unsatisfactory as not only were the Muslim League but by the Hindu Mahasabha and the Sikh communists were also unhappy. Nehru and Subhas Bose rejected the Congress modified goal and jointly set up the Independence for Indian League. Thank you for watching.